All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's recap of episodes 3 and 4. I'm joined with Jeremy Urban and Annabelle Selph. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Awesome. I'm ready to get to this week's couple episodes. They're pretty big. I guess to kick us off with episode 3, we have Bill left out of the vote, and like, what the heck is wrong? He thought Greg was his number one and Victoria was going home, but to his dismay.
Yeah, definitely a lot of the tribe members had to pick up a lot of the pieces and kind of fill Bill in. But I think they did a pretty good job at making sure that Bill was still on their side. So kudos to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we saw Greg do a lot of damage control with Bill to try and keep him on his side, and him and Mike, they all said they flipped last minute, even though it was a whole big planned thing.
Yep.
And then we go over to Mackenzie and Lauren on Exile. We find out that they've been hunting for this, what they think is an idol, this entire time, and finally, right just before, because I was actually talking, I did some confessionals or something with Mackenzie and Lauren right after they found the clue, and it was about a couple hours before we were going to do the challenge. So it was very very close that they didn't actually find it, but Lauren winds up with a safety without power, but it's legacied.
Yeah, this is an interesting power to have because definitely you can only use it at Final 11 or Final 6, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you have to use it wisely. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see like what Lauren does with it and who she can kind of entice with it if she ever ends up using it. So we'll see.
Or tell someone about it too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a very interesting twist on the safety without power advantage. To my knowledge, just in thinking about recent Survivor history on the show, we've only seen it in Winners at War, if I'm remembering correctly, when Jeremy had it. And I don't believe it was legacied. I think he could use it pretty much anytime post-merge until like Final 5 or something like that. So It's an interesting combination of advantages here, and big props to the production team for kind of thinking that one through, because I think that's a good way to make it even harder and force the contestants to be more strategic with it.
Yeah,
for sure. And also, I'm pretty sure this is different from the actual game as well, that they could use it on someone else. Mm-hmm. So they could just be like, Jeremy, get out. You're safe, but you also don't have your vote. So they could use it offensively as well as defensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to come down to whoever is holding the safety without power advantage, what the numbers are kind of looking like for their game. And so they have to make that split decision. I was like, I could just save myself, or I can take out someone on the other side. That way our numbers have the advantage. Mm-hmm. That route, you have to rely on a few more people to do what they're actually going to say they're going to do. But it may be a big risk that could pay off.
Yeah. Do you take somebody out of the equation who you know is voting against your side, but maybe not the target? Do you take out, I mean, I don't know if there are like that many stipulations on it, but could you, in theory, give it to the person with immunity? And then basically like no one's safe, and then everyone at tribal is vulnerable?
Damn. I guess technically.
That would be an interesting iteration. Take that person's vote out of the equation. And And again, it would obviously be a waste of safety, but if that's kind of your goal, is to just make everyone vulnerable.
Yeah.
Interesting play.
And then before the challenge, we go to the Alexa tribe with John saying Connor wants to volunteer himself for Exile. If you guys had someone on your tribe that was just like, guys, I really want to go to Exile,
No.
how would you?
No. So many red flags.
It
paints a target on your back, for one, and because now people know, oh, well, they want to go because they might want to find an advantage, or they might want to make some deals with the person from the other tribe. Like, it shows that you're kind of working on your own too much, and possibly that you're kind of unloyal to your own tribe.
I agree, especially so early in the game where things are really in flux and before any sort of tribe swaps, attempting to build relations with the other side and to do so that publicly is very risky, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we get Austin talking about someone on our tribe is paranoid. Someone on our tribe is paranoid. So I feel Connor is definitely in some hot water with his tribe if they do lose and he is not on Exile, which they did lose. And we'll get to that. But right before the challenge, also, we have Andrew stressing again, I want a unanimous vote. I want a unanimous vote. So someone doesn't feel bad. So I guess him keeping on stressing that, would you assume that he has the idol because he's like, don't worry, guys, we can make this unanimous?
Ooh. I think with Andrew, I don't know. It's hard to tell. You kind of have to just trust your gut instinct if you're actually playing the game. He may just win because he actually doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But unfortunately, that's kind of the game itself. Like, you have to deceive people, and you have to tell them things to make sure that they feel that they're safe. But then at the same time, you got to make your own plans to get yourself further.
Yeah, I think unanimous votes in theory are always nice ideas because it's less messy. Really, only one person is hurt, no one's left out. You're not alienating anybody, which can be really good for obviously tribe unity and morale, and hopefully it can help you continue to win. But it's almost like what we kind of saw in Cagayan, where Garrett didn't want people to go talk about anything. He just wanted it all out in the open. It kind of feels like that. Like, hey, let's just all cooperate. It's like, yeah, that's a nice idea in theory, but like Jeremy said, that's not the game at its core. The game is a lot of deception and figuring out different routes to the end.
Yeah. I mean, like, for unanimous votes, if you have that one person on your tribe that no one is really just vibing with, and the other that person is causing a lot of stress on the tribe, then yes, unanimous votes, they can happen and they work. But if there are a few different groups that are together, that are kind of going for different people, then unanimous votes are just not going to happen.
For sure. Now we get into the challenge, which I loved, but it was a pain in the butt to edit because it was just, I think it was an 1.5-hour challenge in total. Like, it was long.
Wow.
So the challenge itself is you had to nominate a caller, then that caller guided 3 people rolling die to get the numbers 1 through 6 all in order. And then once all 3 people had that, we moved on to a puzzle with 3 other players completing that puzzle. Where would you guys have decided to fall? Puzzle, caller, which I doubt, knowing you guys, or blindfold?
I would have gone the puzzle route for sure. I like jigsaw puzzles. I feel like I could have been a good asset there.
For me, dice all the way. I follow directions well, and I suck at puzzles. So
know your strengths, Jeremy.
Yeah, for sure. It comes down to the wire. The Phil tribe does not have much of a head start coming into that puzzle. They had maybe 3-ish minutes before John got Mackenzie to finish her last dice. We see Austin. He can't roll a 1 for like ever. It must have been 50 some odd rolls, and Austin can't roll a 1. John is saying, like, just turn your dice before rolling it, just something where you can try and get this 1. But what strategy do you think might have been better, the all 3 at the same time, where he quickly finished Lauren and Lilly, or the 1 at a time, which didn't seem like it took that much longer? It's just Austin couldn't roll a 1.
I feel like it kind of depends on the challenge. Having seen a few different variations of this blindfold call out challenge, and then playing in one myself, the dice, it's all RNG. And so it's kind of just up to luck for people to actually get the numbers rolled correctly. But I think definitely with this type of challenge, there's so much chaos going on. And if you're blindfolded, I think, at least for me, I would be more like tense because like I want to make sure like I'm doing everything correctly. And so possibly that the one-on-one would be more easier than the say, okay, this person does this, go on to the next person, go on to the next person, because it's just going to cause so much confusion and there's already so much going on at the same time.
I would agree. I think it puts less tension on the caller as well, because they're not having to monitor multiple Zoom screens at one time.
Yeah.
It's when Jeremy and I played in our season, we did this with the card sorting, like having to sort it all by suit. And that especially was more advantageous to do one person at a time, because there's so much that you're looking for and combing through in a deck of cards. Whereas there's only, 6 results when you roll a dice. But yeah, I'm with Jeremy. I think going person by person is the move here.
Yeah.
And then we get to that 104-piece jigsaw, which that number is important apparently later on. And Greg, I felt, was hilarious the entire time. He was telling Ian, be quiet. The other tribe don't listen to each other. And I thought that banter back and forth was great.
Yeah, you definitely need someone who can add a little bit of humor on your tribe, like doing the puzzle, because it's just, you're so stressed out about if the other tribe's going to finish first or anything like that, that it's so stressful in that moment. And so you just need kind of like a little bit of relief and kind of just blow away that tension a little bit. So I think it was a lot of fun by Greg.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, by the skin of their teeth, the Phil tribe won that immunity challenge, and we get to Ian saying, all right, you have to pick someone to go to Exile, and Connor follows through, nominates himself. We go into the breakout room with the Phil tribe, and they're all like, no, we're not entertaining any of this. And they pick Andrew, and Andrew picks Lilly.
Yes.
I think Andrew would have been safe at this tribal council, seeing as we saw Gaby leave the challenge. I think she was, or didn't see Gaby leave the challenge. I think it would have been interesting to see if they pulled Gaby to Exile, what would have happened next. Maybe a Connor might have gone home at that point, because everybody was suspicious of his paranoia and everything like that. But no real waves were rocked with Andrew going. Lauren got the information from Mackenzie to take Andrew because he was in neither alliance really and just kind of floating around. So it was kind of to put pen to paper for choosing alliances, which Zucker, Connor, and Mackenzie had to do. And they also convinced Jim to vote Gaby out as well to kind of disband the newbie alliance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see if someone else had been selected for Exile Island, but just with Lauren being so vocal about Andrew needing to be the one to go and her tribe trusting her because she had that Exile intel from Mackenzie, wasn't really much of a discussion to be had. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But I think it's not a bad choice to kind of cut out the floater and keep him safe, because then it kind of forces cannibalization of an alliance, which is a good way to manipulate the game from the other side.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And Mackenzie and Austin were really stressing about what if Gaby has the idol, because like Will on the other tribe, he wasn't really talking as much. So Victoria thought he had the idol. They thought Gaby had the idol because she wasn't talking as much. And they were wanting to split votes, essentially alienating another person, which would have been Jim. Mm-hmm. But John sat them both down and was like, listen, I have the idol. And what? Like, I get it, but at the same time, what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if John wanted to do it then and there, but just to make sure that their plan was going to go foolproof, I think John had to tell them. I definitely don't think that he wanted to do it right then.
Yeah, I for sure think he probably wanted to keep that as quiet as possible. But when you have what should be an easy vote stress a situation, then to dissuade everything, just be like, all right, guys, shh, you're my alliance, I have the idol.
Yeah, and definitely you can tell like your alliance so many times, like the vote's going to go fine, it's going to go fine. But like paranoia is going to be setting in all over the place. And so if they can't get over that paranoia, then we have to bring in other means of information to calm them down.
Right. And I think, sorry, Annabelle, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, and regardless of like the vote being what it was, I'm sure he also just knew that with a potential swap coming up, which we saw did end up paying out, he probably wanted to solidify people for a little bit further down the road. And he just took the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all kind of, I guess, convinced Connor, let's just see what happens and all go Gaby. Because Andrew was talking with him about unanimous votes. He talked about it with John. So I think John kind of guided Connor to be like, it's fine. Trust us. I think we'll all come out of this okay. I don't think she'll play an idol.
Yeah. Because
she believed, as we saw after she got voted out, she believed the newbie alliance was like, it was the thing, was the alliance, that there wasn't anything else. And that leads us into episode 4. The swap. We have arrived at our first tribe swap. We are still sticking with 2 tribes. So the breakdown of the swap was blindly they had to nominate 2 people. Those 2 people were Lauren for Phil and Connor for Alexa, and they started the schoolyard pick of whoever they picked, then picked the next person. What are your thoughts on how this all broke down with the blind vote and then with the round robin kind of schoolyard pick?
I liked the blind vote. I think it's fun for the hosts and for the audience to see everyone sweat and try and figure out like what this vote means and pertains to. And when you see that kind of thing on the show, when they do tribe switches, I mean, it's all random anyway, where they just are drawing buffs out of a box or whatever. So this, in a sense, is also fairly random. And I kind of liked seeing the schoolyard pick and how it all shook out. It's a little obviously confusing now, having watched the first 2 episodes, and then, you have to completely shift alliances and figuring out who's on the winning team versus the losing team. But I ultimately liked it. I like a good schoolyard pick. It's kind of a fun way to see politics and perceptions that people have against one another.
So I was a little bit, I was trying to maybe figure out why people voted where they voted during the blind vote. Because we definitely see the, which one? The Alexa tribe, like they're really kind of cautious of Connor.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they vote him in. But I know that these group of players, they know that something's coming up. It's not going to be maybe a swap, but it may be something negative towards someone.
Mm-hmm.
So Connor, I could kind of see like why they kind of voted for him. And then I guess it was kind of the same with the Phil tribe too, with them picking Lauren, since after she went to Exile, they all kind of made their own new bonds with each other. They got closer, and so they might have been more skeptical with Lauren. But I kind of be a little bit. I'd like to kind of probably know a little bit more about why people kind of chose the votes that they did, if it wasn't kind of like in that sense. But I think
we saw Mike break that down a little bit, at least for the Phil side of things, where they all talked and were like, we're gonna make it seem like Lauren's on the bottom if they have to do it like a Gabon style, where like this is our most valuable, this is our least. And he thought that Bill, Victoria, and some other people voted Lauren, and then one of their people flopped over to vote Lauren.
Yeah.
So the new Phil tribe is Lauren, who picked Austin, who picked Greg, who picked Mackenzie, who picked Victoria, who picked Jim, and who got Bill. And then the Alexa tribe is Connor, who picked Mike, who picked Michael, who picked Alex, picked Andrew, who picked Lilly, who got John. And I love how they called this like, we're gonna do an activity. Yeah. We're not gonna go into a challenge, or we're just gonna do this little activity. And then we hop into the Alexa tribe here, and we have Alex, who's happy he has his core group of Lilly and Mike. Mike, who is questioning why Lauren was the vote when they kind of discussed Lilly being the person, but I think now he might be happy that it was Lauren and not Lilly, because he has his like core group of people. And then Lilly being like, what the hell, John? I'm a threat too. Yeah. Like these boys aren't just the threats, but like, okay, I'll play dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, maybe you'd have to figure out what John is kind of thinking of, like, okay, what's a threat level? Because it may be more physical, mental, they're really good at challenges, but you also have those social threats who can sneak their way into alliances and deeper into the game. And so
Lilly.
Yeah, Lilly. You can already tell, like, she's making those connections. You can even, in that confessional, she's like, yeah, like, I ask dumb questions to John, but it's because like I want to get to know everyone. And so that may really benefit her game later down the road.
Just from confessionals and what we've seen in group settings and stuff like that. I personally really like Lilly. I think she's a great player. I mean, I'm biased because I picked her in the.
I was just gonna say bias draft pick.
I like what she's bringing to the table so far. I think she's a good player with a good head on her shoulders and is maybe a little bit more stealth than some of the other threats. And I think with Zoom Survivor, as opposed to the actual game, it can be a little difficult to judge threat level just because we don't. The challenges are obviously very different, so the physicality portion is kind of judged differently. The social threats, like you only know what you see in group settings or what you've heard from other people. It's hard to see how many people they're talking to and how often. And obviously, if they have the strategy but they're not voicing it, then that can be hard as well. So it's easy to forget about threats that are there, I think, just because it's more difficult to assess threat level.
Yeah.
And now the Phil tribe, Lauren, she found the idol. The replanted Will got voted out with the idol. She got the replanted Phil tribe idol, which was math. So Morgan sent a message that had a bunch of like mistyped words, and those like letters that were mistyped spelled out math. She sent it in, and she had to do the puzzle pieces, which Ian promptly announced there are 104 puzzle pieces. The letters in the word scramble puzzle, and then the total votes cast divided by the women who have been on Exile. That gave her an answer which she then submitted. And then they were like, but wait, who was on that jigsaw puzzle? And it was John Mish. And then once she submitted John Mish, she got the idol. I love this new twist to immunity idols of it's a hunt, because we see that in the show where you get one clue, all right, you think you've got it, now you have another clue, you think you've got it, and you still have another step to go.
Yeah, it definitely fits the theme of Exile Island, because usually in those types of seasons, like clues are spread out through the multiple islands of Exile Island. So I thought that was really cool by production. And then I also loved one of Lauren's quotes, like in this confessional while she's kind of explaining her thought process, is she says, I need to act like I'm paying attention to people, while she's like reading the message, like wanting to go after that idol. I thought that was pretty funny, because like in the back of your mind, you do think like, what could this clue be? Like, what does all this mean? But at the same time, like if you're on a Zoom call, you have to be like you're paying attention and contributing to the conversations. So
yeah, I really liked this idol clue as well. It's very on brand for our host to do a math problem like that.
Yes.
Especially something that, like, I mean, a lot of people really like math, but a lot of people don't like math, so it's challenging, and maybe it's not the most quote unquote fair to everyone's skill set. But I mean, not everyone.
At the same time, it was calculator math. Like it
wasn't.
wasn't.
It was not calculus. It was calculus, like you said.
Which Lauren needed her fair share of help with, because she didn't at least know the numbers of what to plug in. Like she knew how to do the math, but it was, she called upon Greg. Greg gave her the answers, and then he probably is now realizing, oop, my bad. I should have just done I should have just noticed. But I guess it's an org vet kind of thing where like Morgan sends a message or Ian sends a message in the chats, you've got to see and examine it, because it could be something. We hear Lauren say Victoria said something about it, and she was just like, no. But like, just because Lauren said something doesn't mean it's correct. So like if I were Victoria, I would have definitely examined that a little bit harder to try and see if there was something, if she could find math. I know Lauren was the only one to send in math.
Wow.
Wow. That's a tricky clue then.
That's,
Yeah.
I actually,
No
I
other
wanna know-
guesses either. No other guesses. Everyone just thought Morgan sent a message.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to know how Greg knew who the castaway was in the puzzle, because I remember I was watching that challenge yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's like a cool picture. Like, there's just a guy like
Mhm.
in the photo. I didn't even like think about it. Like, that could have been a Survivor castaway, and like, let alone Greg knows like who it is. And so I'd be curious to know like how he knew that.
The way Greg found out about the game was through Survivor trivia. So
Mhm.
like he's one of the people that like knows his stuff about Survivor. But you see like that tower is the only one of its kind really on an Exile island, where they all have like a shack that they go into, or a skull, or something along those lines. So that's kind of like its own like separate thing, but definitely you have to be one of the people who have seen the seasons over and over and over again to know that that is for sure John Mesh.
Okay.
You're not crazy.
Yeah. And this is why I suck at trivia.
Yes. Which is why you would be on the cups.
Yes.
So going into this next challenge, it is an SGSN sponsored challenge, because we do a lot of Survivor trivia. One of our co-founders, Nick, he is currently hiking. He does Survivor trivia, so we are on a little bit of a pause right now. But we got a lot of our people from trivia, and we saw their skills shown here. So Annabelle, as a winner of Survivor trivia, I'm guessing you would be on trivia.
Correct. I would. It's always fun. It never gets old to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would also decide to be on trivia, seeing as I am a co-host of that. And then one thing to credit some of the people balancing the cups, we didn't get the best brand of solo cup. So when Mike just like drops, the cups aren't all that even. The mouths might not like align as well as like the red solo cups. So I do just want to credit some of the castaways when they just randomly drop.
Yeah.
But we see our first loss of Victoria. She gets hit twice by Bill lost his challenge versus Alex, and Lauren lost versus Andrew. So she's sitting at 4 cups. Two random drops of Mike, Simmons, and Lilly. Austin gains a cup because Bill lost against Alex again. And then Jim, Mackenzie lost versus Michael. And then ultimately, Victoria drops when it's just down to her and Connor. The new Alexa tribe made a really big comeback when Connor was the only one who could take cups, but their trivia people were on it and like didn't miss a beat until that final question where Victoria doesn't make it with her 5th cup.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely shows that like no matter like what you're doing, you always have to have like complete concentration.
Yep.
Just holding 2 cups. I mean, like you saw, I think it was Austin who was kind of like had like one arm on a table at one point. But I think you have to have that concentration, because cups can fall in an instant, and we definitely saw that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And then so that the Alexa tribe securing immunity means their furthest cup person was Connor. Connor won individual reward of $20. And then we had the boys minus Greg battle it out for then we had the boys minus John battle it out for their individual reward, and we see Alex drop out first and Michael Zucker win the $20 for the trivia people. So congrats to you boys on the reward. And that's kind of all I have on the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too.
Um,
Interesting tribal though.
yeah, but before we get to that tribal, John pushes Lauren to go to Exile. And he's like, I'm pretty sure he probably knows Lauren is not going to go to Rocks. She's going to find some way to either pull someone over like Mackenzie, which they really bonded on Exile, or Austin, who she hosted in Your Mini Jeremy season 1. Or like some, or both of them maybe, to vote out Jim, but she was not going to Rocks. So by John saying, hey, let's get rid of Lauren and force them to probably go to Rocks or someone to flip, it was huge, because she also then had the idol too.
Yeah. It was definitely a smart move to pick Lauren. And you definitely see that with the tribal phase leading up to tribal, basically. You have multiple conversations from people like, do we go to Rocks, or do we try to make something happen? And they're trying to weigh the options, and it's a tough one.
Yeah, they're trying to see their best inroads. So if you're Bill, Victoria, and Greg, who do you think you could easily kind of try and pull over? Because at first they were thinking Jim, but then they were like, maybe it's Mackenzie.
Yeah, I definitely think, just watching from Jim's confessionals, I feel like he's extremely loyal and he wouldn't kind of want to budge. Mackenzie, on the other hand, she's a social butterfly and she wants to make moves. She's not afraid to do it. And so I think, Mackenzie was probably the best option to go for.
I agree. We had one confessional of Jim saying he would consider flipping, but considering does not mean actually doing it. Everyone probably considered it at some point. And like Jeremy said, Mackenzie does have like the social connections and seems to be a little bit more interested in savvy and aggressive gameplay. So I think that would have been the move too.
Yeah. But then she also does say that she kind of maybe wants to make that move, but then doesn't want to be at the bottom. Which is also smart thinking too, because you have to make sure that if you flip, you're not going to be the next person voted out. Like, you need to be in kind of like that middle tier of the alliance. So she's definitely thinking about a bunch of different options and going through the strategies in her mind. So,
and then one line that I just love, again, Greg with that humor of, wait, no, we're not voting for Austin because I don't want that guy safe. I want him on the wheel. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
He had a great, or Jim had a great voting confessional too.
Yeah, of a $125 mistake.
Yeah, because I'm trying to retire early.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Mackenzie's plan of, all right, I know we're going to Rocks. We're gonna save Greg. Hopefully they save either myself or Austin because he's my day one. Not that I want to lose Jim, but Jim's kind of like, at this point, the one I can lose. I'd ideally like to lose Bill, which, spoiler alert, winds up happening. What do you think of this? Let's save someone instead of let's try and get someone to flip.
I actually thought it was an interesting strategy. Like, I would have never even thought about that. And so they're really taking this game to a whole new level. Like, okay, we're going to go to Rocks. Who can we save to further my game? Which I don't think like anyone's ever really thought about that. Like on Survivor, like, okay, if we're gonna tie, who are we saving?
Yep.
Like, I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was cool as well, but I think an important element of it to discuss is the fact that there was no revote. So nobody really had much of a chance to get spooked after their ballot was cast. Because we've definitely seen people flip on revotes. And that kind of throws rocks up. So, and obviously it's still a game of chance at the end of the day. They had a 1 in 4 chance of going home for the people who were not the original vote recipients. But the fact that there was no revote, I think, made it a little bit more interesting, and it could shift the strategy a little bit. But I agree. I think it is a completely different level of gameplay we haven't seen on Standard Survivor.
Yeah.
But the question I have for like the two of you is, it's what, Tribal 3? Would you guys go to Rocks on the 3rd Tribal?
Depends. Am I Greg or am I Bill?
say if you're Bill.
Ooh, if I'm Bill, I don't know, because I try and find a way to save my people, but like, I don't want to go home, but I also don't want to be in that bottom 2 because I could just go home next week.
Right.
Yeah.
And like Bill was saying in his confessionals of what a way to go out. If it's Rocks, it's Rocks. And then you're that person who's like, like their game was cut short. You know, you're remembered well instead of remembered as a flipper.
Sure.
So I don't know. Though it is Tribal 3, and I'm like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I'd really have to be in it to concrete decision that.
Yeah, I think it's tough just because with somebody on Exile for the duration of Tribal Council, there's only 6 people at Tribal. So you have decent odds of going home anyway without Rocks. So with Rocks, your odds increase to 1 in 4 if you're not the original vote recipient. And I don't know, it is early to go to Rocks, and your odds are not very good there compared to maybe post-merge when there are no tribes. When you go to Rocks when there's like 10 people, could potentially be better. So, but again, it's hard to tell when we're not in that situation.
I just want to give a little Austin stat. I mean, though it's his first time on the wheel, this is his 3rd time going to Rocks and surviving all of them. He's been the vote getter in season 1 mini. He was the vote getter for all of the rock draws, and now he's on the wheel for the rock draw and still survived it. So like, props to Austin for that one. But ultimately, we see Mackenzie's plan sort of work out, even though Jim is the safe one and not her or Austin. Bill goes home. Sadly, I lose a member of my fantasy team, and Bill gets rocked out. He does not get voted out.
Yeah, it's I guess in a way you can say like, oh, this season like I was never really voted out. Like I got rocked out, but it's still sad to see him go.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he did not have a vote cast against him as well. So like, there you go. I had 0 votes cast against me when I was rocked out. So speaking of our fantasy drafts, I'll give you a little draft update since everyone that is on the screen right now is in the draft. We've got Carrie at a whopping 43 points.
Oh my gosh.
Well, when you have like Lauren, Greg, like all these people that are like killing confessionals and like finding idols, I've only got John who found the one. Lauren has the advantage plus the idol, like, and she hasn't lost someone yet. All 3 of us have. So then the next highest person is Jeremy at 24, Annabelle at 23, and myself at 21. So it's a tight race between the 3 of us.
Yeah.
But we need to get all these castaways. Can you please get Team Carrie out of here so we have a shot at something? But I guess that is all we have for the recap.
Yep. Now we just need to choose our MVPs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who would y'all's pick be?
Ooh,
Should we do it episode by episode or just for the whole?
No, it's
duration?
the whole week. It's the whole
week.
week's episode.
I think my MVP, and this is not only because she's on my team, but I have to give it to Mackenzie for this week.
Okay.
She got I think she got decent amount of information from Lauren while she was on Exile, and was able to use that with choosing people to go on Exile after her. And then she kind of like had this idea of like, I need to be safe after this 3-3 rock vote. And I really want to work with Greg, so I want to make sure that he's safe. And so she kind of had that thought process. And so from the edit, she had like that plan going in motion. So I think I'd give it to her.
I've been debating a lot I've been thinking just all week of like, all right, who do I pick? And I think I came to this one finally, like my last one, where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it to Victoria, because she was on the puzzle, helped Phil complete that challenge. She was a rock star with the cups. She held the most cups out of everyone and survived the wheel. So like, I don't know, that was pretty good too. Honorable mention for sure, Greg.
Yeah.
Like, he's just killing the game at this point. Lilly also killing the game, but I feel like Victoria kind of had her shining moment these 2 episodes. So I'm going Victoria.
Good choice.
Annabelle, do you have who you would put as an MVP for this?
I do. I would actually take a different route, and I would have picked John, because he was the caller, which is always a difficult position to be in. He was able to hopefully cement some allies with the revelation that he had the idol. So I think while that is always a risky move to tell people that you have it, it is a pretty good way to cement allies. So he did that. And then also with kind of the strategic move of getting Lauren on Exile after the swap to protect her and then force the other tribe to go to rocks, he was really the one vocalizing that. So I think he was able to influence the game without making it look like he was the one pulling the strings. So that's why I would give him MVP.
Yeah, especially since Andrew was like, so we're sending Lauren or Mackenzie?
Yeah.
And he was just like, how about Lauren?
Yeah.
We have new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Bill's exit interview, you can catch that yesterday, so it'll be in the channel playlist for exit interviews, as well as Gaby's was on Wednesday. And then our recaps are every Sunday. And don't forget to subscribe, like, find SGSN on Facebook, become part of our community, participate in polls, questions, episode discussions, you name it. We have it all on Facebook. All right. See you next time, everybody.